Let's Take This Outside with Marianne Iveson, the podcast where she speaks to athletes, outdoor professionals, and scientists about why they connect with nature.
Alexis Ashworth is the founder of Root in Nature, a social enterprise that brings the healing power of nature and plants to the community through horticultural therapy, nature-based programs, and employee well-being. This started for Alexis from a longtime love of plants and gardening and an appreciation of their therapeutic benefits. Alexis spent 11 years as CEO of Habitat for Humanity in Ottawa and Halifax. She holds a BComm in finance, an MBA in international development management, and is a member of the Canadian Horticultural Therapy Association. On the weekends, she can be found in her fruit and vegetable garden, growing food for her husband to cook and 2 young daughters to enjoy. Love this chat with Alexis. I hope you love it too. Alexis Ashworth, thank you so much for joining me on Let's Take This Outside.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A friend of mine actually sent me your article in the Ottawa Business Journal, and she was like, you should probably talk to her. I'm like, yes, this is exactly someone that I want to talk to, because I don't know if you've had a chance to listen or not, but this is usually like athletes and scientists, but this like perfectly aligns with, I guess, my mantra about connecting people with nature, and it's a different way. So I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, your podcast is wonderful, and I'm happy to add a different flavor.
So the reason I want to talk to you is Root in Nature. That is your business, and cool name, first of all. But what is Root in Nature, and where did this idea come from?
Yeah, so Root in Nature connects the community with plants and nature to benefit their health and well-being. And we do that with horticultural therapy, with nature-based programs, and with employee well-being. And the idea, well, it's a bit of a story, I guess. Throughout the pandemic, I was a CEO of Habitat for Humanity, and I have a young family. I have 2 young kids. And it was kind of a stressful time for everybody, and, particularly leading a not-for-profit. And I found myself turning to nature and gardening and plants to just improve my mental well-being and to stay present and calm. And I started working with an executive coach, and that kind of passion just came out in our sessions. And she suggested that I explore it as a career opportunity. And honestly, I had never even considered that could be a career path. My background is in finance. I've always had a real interest in social finance, like where kind of social impact and finance merge. But I thought, wow, that would be really cool if my personal passion, like what I love to do in my spare time, could actually be a career. And I had been exposed to horticultural therapy many years ago in the UK, and just kind of Googled horticultural therapy Ottawa. And this woman named Sarah Shapiro came up. She's a horticultural therapist at the Pearly Rideau Veterans Health Center, now Pearly Health, they rebranded. And yeah, I just reached out to her on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm interested in horticultural therapy. Do you want to connect? And we had a great phone call. And it turns out she's like a young, ambitious woman herself, and wanted to spread the word about horticultural therapy, wanted to see it expand and become more well-known and more practiced in Ottawa. So we joined forces and started forming Root in Nature, and she's working full-time pretty much at the Pearly. So I kind of lead the business, but she was the inspiration behind it and the reason that I decided to take this route.
I would say that's probably a combination of inspiration, because it sounds like you came up with the idea and then she was already kind of doing what you wanted to do, and you took her expertise and kind of grew that into your business.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. We had, these connections, these regular phone calls over the course of a few months, where the business was kind of taking shape. And I would say we're still in the period of, experimentation and seeing what's going to work in the community, where there's a need. Yeah, so she was definitely part of that forming process. And I think we both brought our kind of visions and merged them into what became Root in Nature.
This is more of a selfish question, because I did a career pivot almost exactly a year ago, and I'm doing, with this, I'm doing voiceover. But to see other women doing that, especially in the last couple of years, and really going for their passion and what they want to do, is really inspiring. So I wanted to ask, what's it like to bring a dream to life and see it flourish? And I know it's not just all flourishing, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of heartache too.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I'd like you to ask me that in a year or two when I can actually see that this is going to be a career that can allow me to have the kind of lifestyle that I want. Like right now I'm in a period of just loving what I do every day and being, so energized and like pinching myself some days, like I get to do this, but I still have to make a living for my family. I have a very supportive husband, thankfully, with a very stable, job, but it's a leap of faith for sure. And I have the kind of personality type where I'm just like, it's going to work and I can make it work. And the staff who worked with me at Habitat, thankfully, like they said the same thing, like it's you, so it's going to work, like you'll make it work. And I think there's such a demand for this right now. I think that there's a need for it and it resonates with people. So I think it is going to be successful, but it takes time. And yes, last summer was really tricky when I was doing both the CEO job and forming Root in Nature at the same time. There was about a 6-month overlap where I was doing both. That was a bit insane. So I was so happy when, as much as I loved the job and loved Habitat, I was quite happy to focus full time on Root in Nature. And I hope I get to do this for the rest of my career. Knock on wood.
I hope so too. And I do agree that it's badly needed, not just Ottawa, but I think in our society right now. And there's this quote on your website that pretty much kind of summarizes Root in Nature. So I'm just going to read this out loud. I want to know what this means. I want you to explain it to me. Root in Nature's mission is to bring the healing power of nature and plants to the community through horticultural therapy, nature-based programs, and employee well-being. You essentially said that earlier too, but can you explain what this means and what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, I think people interact with nature and plants all the time. Anytime you're outside, you're interacting with nature and plants. But horticultural therapy really teaches you how to interact with plants in a healing, therapeutic way that is great for your mental health and your physical health. So we are teaching people how to interact with plants and nature to gain all those healing benefits that are so badly needed right now. I just happened to chat with someone about a potential client who has, low mood, anxiety, PTSD, worry. Like those are all things that horticultural therapy can help alleviate in people. It gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of accomplishment. When you plant a seed and you see it come to fruition and you harvest the food that it grows, it's an incredible feeling. And I think that it shows people how they can tap into what's already there in nature, but do it in a way that's specifically healing for the issues that everybody's facing right now.
I'm going to ask you a very dumb question, but what is horticultural therapy? Like, what does that look like?
It's using plants and the garden landscape as a healing modality for people. It is practiced by trained horticultural therapists. So horticultural therapists generally have a horticulture background, like some knowledge in plants and gardening, and kind of social human sciences background. And then there's specific horticultural therapy training. So they are looking at, the specific needs of clients and individuals and designing a program that will, meet those needs, whether it's lifting mood or improving, physical functioning, improving cognitive functioning, counting seeds, planting a certain way. So it's using plants in the garden landscape to improve well-being for people and doing that in a trained professional way.
And these programs must be long-standing because it's not just like plant the seeds, we're good, everything's fine, because you have to wait for it to grow, you have to tend to it, you have to water it, you have to, whatever that looks like. So it must be an ongoing program, right? It must be ongoing. And
yeah, it is in a lot of cases. The Pearly, it's been happening there for, 20 years or so. Sarah's been working there for the past 7 years. So yes, it can absolutely be a long-standing program. But there's research and studies where even like a 6-week program had a long-term impact on people. For example, if you are suffering from anxiety and you have like a worry loop that's just continually going in your mind, in your brain, horticultural therapy can actually break that cycle, and it can have long-standing impacts even after that 6-week period. There's a healing center in It's somewhere in Europe. I knew I was going to forget the location, but it's for executives who are burnt out and who are type A, go types. And there's a program where they go to this place, and it can have long-term impacts beyond just those healing few weeks because of things like just breaking the cycle, breaking the worry loop that people experience.
Can you explain a little bit more, maybe some of these studies that, like, can you almost boil it down to something a little bit more basic? Like, how does, putting your hands into the soil heal? How does planting seeds heal? How does watching things grow heal? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, well, and I should preface this with that I'm not a horticultural therapist. I oversee the whole business. So this would definitely be a better question for a horticultural therapist. I did study the foundations of it just in the process of launching the business. I needed to fully understand. But yeah, I mean, there's things like even just getting your hands dirty with soil has microbial benefits, right? So just the physical aspect of interacting with plants, and it actually improves your long-term health. Like kids who grow up on a farm, for example, will have less long-term health issues than people who grow up in an urban environment. That is one area actually that I've studied more extensively is the effect of nature in the workplace. I do a presentation called Nature in the Workplace with Dr. Owen Wiseman. And so we talk about the effects of natural light and potted plants and nature scenes in the workplace for mental health and physical health and productivity. And there's a great book, actually, if you're interested in the science of it, called Your Brain on Nature, which is really a wonderful, wonderful read that's chock full of research and data. But yeah, that's one example, is just the physical effects of having your hands in soil is very therapeutic. And another example would be a amaryllis program, which is done with people who are suffering from loss or have depression. You take, an amaryllis bulb and you nurture it and plant it, and then you watch it grow, and then it has this spectacular big bloom. And it, for like a senior who has lost their spouse, for example, it just gives a sense of joy, to look at it. It's like something that brings a lot of joy to people's lives. I think sensory experiences is another thing I could mention, but we do a lot of work around smell and touch and sight and even hearing. Like focusing on your senses is something that's very grounding and can really help manage anxiety and worry. So that's something that horticultural therapy kind of teaches you how to do with the natural environment and even with houseplants.
Let's take this outside with Marianne Iveson.
I want to make a quick point that you said kids who grew up on a farm, they're more likely to be connected to nature. So I grew up on a farm in Southern Ontario, along with a brother and sister. And it's so funny to look at how much we love nature. Like my sister's actually taking horticulture right now at Guelph. I love hiking and nature and getting dirty. And my brother, the same way, he loves the outdoors too. So I actually look back, and whenever I say, where did my love of nature come from? I'm like, it's from playing and growing up on a farm and in nature and outside and spending most of my time outside. So I just want to confirm from a personal standpoint that 100% I give so much credit to growing up on a farm to that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, lucky you. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I've done quite a bit of woofing actually, and I love farm life. Oh, it used to be called Willing Workers on Organic Farms. I think they rebranded to Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. But you can basically work anywhere in the world that has a WWOOF program. You work for a half day in exchange for your food and accommodations. So you basically live for free in exchange for a half day of work. Yeah, I've done that in Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, and England, and I really fell in love with farm life that way. And it's a great way to kind of immerse yourself in the local culture too. So good for you. I'm jealous that you grew up on a farm. You'll probably have better long-term health because of it.
I hope so. I think it definitely helps. But I actually want to talk to you more about your connection to plants and gardening. And so you actually just mentioned that you did woofing, which we just found out what that is. But I wanted to know where that came from, where it started, and then what does that connection to nature feel like for you?
Well, I've had a vegetable garden in the summer for as long as I can remember. Since I've been owning homes, I always try to have a house on a corner lot with as much land as possible. So now I've got, a couple apple trees and pear trees and lots of garden beds. I honestly was not interested in indoor plants, like in actually learning about them and kind of interacting more with them until COVID. And that's when this sort of new fascination came into play. I just started learning more about the different genuses of plants and what they need and all the very interesting varieties of house plants. So yeah, for me, it started with gardening, just vegetable gardening. It's something I look forward to every spring. Like it's definitely my favorite time of year, planting seedlings inside and then planting them out and watching them grow. It's just a miraculous thing to take a tiny seed and put it in the soil and then watch it grow. And it's really an incredible experience. And every year it fascinates me. It's not just kids who would be fascinated by that. I think it's a pretty incredible experience. And I use it as therapy myself. Now that I've studied a bit about horticultural therapy, I can identify what activities might help with what I'm going through. So for example, I missed a flight a few weeks ago. It was an awful experience. If you had 15 minutes, I'd tell you the story. It's awful. Anyway. Is
that a problem right now?
It wasn't even to do with that, but anyway, I digress. Okay. So I missed a flight. I came home. The first thing I did was grab my gardening tools and I went out and weeded for an hour. And I felt so much better when I was done, like so much better. I knew that the feeling of accomplishment of like weeding those garden beds that I'd been neglecting was going to make me feel better. Like something would have been good from missing those flights. And I had the physical experience of like getting my aggression out by pulling out weeds and getting my hands dirty. Like honestly, weeding is the best stress relief. So it's great now that I have experienced the horticultural therapy. Like you laugh, but like I know when I need to weed.
That's great.
I know when I need to smell a flower. I observe things like so much more. Just noticing nature is amazing for your mental health. Just literally taking the time to smell a flower. The old adage to like stop and smell the roses is so true. It's just so true. Just take the time to do it because it has big impacts.
You should start a course called Aggressive Weeding.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I could.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. I'm so sorry. I'm really lucky that like I live in just an apartment building, but I have some neighbors who have some beautiful gardens. And right now, we're in the middle of summer and just the smell of the flowers and the trees and the way they take care of it, it actually instantly boosts my mood every single time. Lilacs have to be my favorite. We're past that now, but that smell and it just brings back so many memories too.
Lavender too, if like having a lavender plant. There was a while where I would keep a piece of lavender in my car because I'm the type that like doesn't like to, sit at red lights. So close your eyes and sniff some lavender for a sec and it really does boost your mood and calm you.
I want to talk about some of your programs that you have to offer. You've been working with youth for a while now, but what do you have on the go?
Yeah, so we started partnering with CHIO to do programming for youth with autism.
CHIO is the Children's Hospital in Ottawa for anyone who isn't from here.
My very first exposure to horticultural therapy was actually on a WWOOF farm, incidentally, in the UK about 15 years ago. And kids with developmental disabilities and autism came to the farm and participated in horticultural therapy. So I always knew I wanted to have a program for youth with autism because it's a population that can really benefit from horticultural therapy. There's a great program too in the UK called Thrive UK. If anyone's interested in this topic, Thrive UK does a lot of work with youth with autism. There's a huge demand for therapy for autistic youth. Like if you go on any website looking for therapy, it's like if they even have a wait list, it's years or the wait list is closed. There's just such a huge demand for it. So I'm really looking forward to offering an accessible program for parents who have kids with autism. So we started doing a program for youth who are age 10 to 13 with CHIO. Now we're offering our own independent programming for that same population in the summertime, starting July 16th to August. So I think that will have been underway or finished by now. We have programs starting in the fall for younger youth with developmental disabilities, for youth with autism again. And yeah, so we're going to be really enhancing our programming in that area in the coming year.
I know that is also very badly needed, especially in the province of Ontario right now. Not to make this political, but I know that helping children with autism is badly needed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And as I said, It's an area that I'm looking forward to just growing our programming availability in so people can access it. And I'm working with a PhD social work student now on kind of social justice pricing. So we have different kind of buckets of pricing so that everybody can access these programs and they're accessible to everybody.
You also have a virtual series called Mind, Body, and Soil. Super cute, by the way. Cute name.
Thank you.
If it's virtual, does that mean anyone can take it from anywhere? And what is it?
It's a 5-part series. There's a 1-hour version and a 30-minute version. We offer the 1-hour version for individuals and for companies, and we do the 30-minute version pretty much just for companies because it's less interactive. It's more like you could do it with your cross-Canada team. And it's a series of 5 sessions. The first is on kitchen gardening. So what seeds can you save and how can you regrow what you're already buying from the grocery store? This also, I feel, is like beneficial to know from an economic perspective too. Grocery prices are going through the roof. Gas prices are going through the roof. If you can learn how to regrow the lettuce you're buying or plant pepper plants from the peppers you're buying, we want to teach people how to kind of garden from their kitchen scraps. So that's the first session. And the second is on emotions and choices in the garden. So we talk about companion planting, color theory, emotional naming. The third session is on seed starting and choosing plants. So we teach you how to start seeds, assess your garden space, and set goals. Fourth is on plants and people. So this is kind of an interesting session comparing plant care to self-care, because a lot of the things that plants need are also things that we need and people need to be healthy. So we kind of look at that and analyze that. And then we talk about transition and change, and that's kind of our transplanting and handling change final session. So yeah, that's offered in a couple of different formats.
And also nature in the workplace, you already mentioned it, but it's seminars for companies, right?
Yeah. I mean, individuals can take it as well, but it's basically teaching people how to incorporate nature into the workplace for improved mental and physical health and also improved productivity. I'll give you one little stat from that presentation, which is staggering to me. If companies have 1 plant per square meter in their space, it can increase productivity by 15%, which to me is mind-blowing. It's like any other intervention that could increase productivity by 15% should be, looked at carefully and implemented. So that's the kind of thing that we teach people in that presentation is how to, make nature work with you in your workplace.
I'm going to post all of your links in the show notes, but where can people find you, your website? I'm so excited that this is a podcast episode because it adds to the roster of coolness. That sounds very oh my podcast is so cool. No, I just mean it just adds to the roster of people connecting with nature. And I feel so lucky to have talked to you and talked through this.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you so much. I'm happy to talk about this anytime and honored to be on your podcast. So thank you so much. So yeah, people can find us at our website, which is rootinnature.ca. We're active on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can email me at Alexis@rootinnature if you want to connect with me directly, Alexis@rootinnature.ca.
I'm also going to ask you about that flight thing in 2 seconds. So,
okay.
Thanks, Alexis.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. For more, let's take this outside. Go to ivesonvoice.com/podcast.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.